Good morning. Welcome to Second Unitarian Church. I am Curtis Smith, a member of the Board of Trustees, and my pronouns are he, him, his. Today, we are in person at the Admiral at the Lake and the 2U Sanctuary and continue to meet virtually using Zoom. We ask everyone's indulgence for the complications of a three-part service. We're glad you are here, whichever way you are attending. We continue to require masking in the sanctuary in an effort to make our space welcoming to those who are most vulnerable to COVID. We appreciate you joining us in centering the needs of those most at risk. We especially welcome newcomers and visitors this morning. Finding a new community and making connections can be challenging. Please know that we're excited to have you and look forward to getting to know you. If you are new to us today, please note that in the Zoom chat or mention it in person during conversation after the service. All are invited to join for coffee hour after service. If you would like, there are blue coffee mugs you can use to signal to others that you would like them to come up to you and say hello. If you notice someone with a blue mug, please take a moment to say hi. Our worship today is led by Reverend Jason Leiden, along with Margot Horn as worship associate. Music is provided by our director of music, Carl Kennedy, and the 2U choir. Our time together requires a large number of people who make possible the worship, the music, and the technical production. They are listed in the order of service, and we thank them for their ongoing service to our congregation. I have a couple of announcements for you this morning. The first one is the Anti-Racism Committee and the Social Justice Ministry are organizing a reading group to discuss the book Defund Fear, Safety Without Policing, Prisons, and Punishment. They'll be meeting via Zoom on 3 Mondays, starting tomorrow, January 16th, followed by February 6th and February 20th from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. All the books we ordered have been spoken for, but if you need a copy, please let Reverend Jason know and he'll help you get you a copy. Also tomorrow, the Community Renewal Society is hosting a day of witness and conversation from 1 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Members of the 2U community are meeting at our church at noon to drive down together for this Martin Luther King Jr. Day event. If you have been considering becoming a member of 2U, you're in luck. We are having our new member orientation starting on Sunday, January 29th. We're trying out a later time than usual to try to accommodate nap time for both little ones and ministers. The orientation will be in the Palmer Room and over Zoom from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. If you have questions, you can ask Judy Corbet, Tyler Dunstan, or Reverend Jason. You can find additional announcements in your order of service. I now welcome Margot Horn to lead our call to worship.
We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a community of children, youth, and adults, a people of many beliefs and traditions, bound not by the specific list of things we believe, but the values we share. Whether you are joining us for the first time or for the 1000th time, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God some of the time, all of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. Whatever your race, whomever you love, whichever way you move in the world, however much money is in your pocket, you are welcome here. I invite you, as you feel ready, to take a breath in and out. As the music begins, let us enter into our service together.
Thank you, choir. I hope you all felt enveloped and hugged by them. In just a moment, Escher is going to light our chalice for us, and Harris will light a chalice at the Admiral. And we light our chalices with these words from poet Naomi Shihab Nye. When people have a lot, they want more. When people have nothing, they'll happily share it. Some people say never getting your way builds character. By now, character must be deep and wide as a continent, Africa, Australia, giant cascades of stars spilling over our huge night. Where did the power go? Did it enjoy its break? Is power exhausted? What is real power? Who really has power? Did the generator break? Do we imagine silence more powerful because it might contain everything? Quiet always lives inside noise, but does it get much done? Silence waits for truth to break it. So may the flame we light help us break silence and speak the wisdom of prophets in the lives that we are creating with one another. Sure. Take this one right here.
And join me in singing our opening hymn, number 360, Here We Have Gathered. Find a kindly word.
Please join me in reciting our covenant. The words are on your screen. We covenant to build a community that challenges us to grow and empowers us to honor the truth within ourselves. We will be generous with our gifts and honest in our communication, holding faithful to a love that embraces both diversity and conflict. Called by our living tradition, we will nurture spirituality within a vision of the eternal, living out our inner convictions through struggles for justice and acts of compassion.
Please stay rising as we sing our congregational hymn, Spirit of Life, number 123.
I want to invite those who are young in age or young at heart to come and join me on the chancel, if you would. Anybody want to come forward? Here, I'm going to move this. Oh, that's for you. That's for you to keep. Yeah, that's for you. Lumi, are you going to join us if you want to? It's okay. So tomorrow, there's a lot of people who don't have to go to work and a lot of people who don't have to go to school. Do either of you know why? Yes, Escher. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. What is that all about? Why do we have a day to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr.? Because one thing he did for sure was an I Have a Dream speech. That's one that we know really well and people talk about all the time. One of the things that he did pretty regularly was brought people together to have protests. Do you know what a protest is? Yeah.
I've been to one. It's where you hold up like signs and you chant something while you're in a street or a sidewalk.
It's where you hold up signs, you chant something, and you're moving around on a sidewalk. What is it? Lumi, have you ever been to a protest before? Do you know what that is? No? What might it look like, Escher? Could you demonstrate for us what it might look like to be at a protest? Okay, we're pretending Escher has a sign.
Let our people out.
Let our people out. Yeah, I love that. That's a great chant. Let our people go. By all means.
The ones in jail.
Like the ones in jail. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Well, we are taking some time to think upstairs about justice and what justice means and how we go about creating a world that has more justice in it. And as Unitarian Universalists, the religion that we're part of, we spend a lot of time thinking about justice. And we want to also go from thinking about it to doing about it. And I think that's one of the things that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. taught us so much, is that it is great for us to have justice in our hearts, but so too must we have justice in our actions. Rosa Parks didn't give her seat up to a white person. Yes, I think one of the things that's really important too about Martin Luther King Jr. Day is that while he was one man, he He was part of a whole movement. There were lots of people all across the country engaging together, coming up with ideas, resisting and fighting back and saying, we will not have this racist, segregationist policies affecting us, and we are going to change that. And so people, using people power, made some changes. And so as you go off to your classes this morning, we are excited to create justice with you. And so I invite everyone to join me in singing together as our young people go off to class. Be nice if I printed those words for you somewhere so that you would know them. Some people know them, and that's so great. We'll make sure we get to that. Sorry about that, my friends. Each year at this church, we all make a commitment, a pledge to support the ministry of our community. And in addition to this pledge that we make each year, we also take a collection Sunday after Sunday so that we can share with those who are doing justice work well beyond our walls. And for the month of January, we are sharing our plate, and we don't have a physical plate to pass around right now, but in just a moment, you will be able to use your phone and text to give. This is the one time in the service where it's super appropriate to take your phone out, and I won't be looking at you like, are you paying attention? But you can do this. The month of January, we're sharing with the diverse and revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries. Unitarians love a good acronym. And we have some words this morning from Curtis about their work.
Hello again. As Unitarian Universalists, our journey is to transform the big and the small, to transform ourselves, to transform our congregation, and transform the world. Last year, as you may recall, we took an important step in that journey when we adopted the spirit of the 8th principle to our bylaws and added it to the existing 7 principles. Our congregational journey toward transformation is a quest to become a truly anti-racist, anti-oppressive, multicultural community, a journey TU has intentionally taken for many years now. This journey is essentially a spiritual one in that it asks us to transcend our current condition. It requires deep reflection as individual and as congregation. It asks us to drink from deep spiritual wells so that we may be nourished and the bonds of community may be strengthened. It also asks us to put our deepest values into action, working for justice within our congregation. So perhaps the next step on this journey asks us to put to begin to build a broader community of inclusion by establishing a DRUUMM chapter here at Second Unitarian Church. Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries, DRUUMM, is a Unitarian Universalist people of color ministry and an anti-racist collective bringing lay people and religious professionals together to overcome racism and other oppressions to transform Unitarian Universalism through our multicultural experiences. DRUUMM is a collective of people who identify as people of color. Allies are welcome and organized as allies for racial equality. Together, we are able to open to all people. DRUUMM organizes community building events, leadership trainings, and is an advocate within the Unitarian Universalist congregations. So I thank you for your generosity and are grateful for your support.
Now I invite you to join me in reading our offertory words. The words are printed in your order of service and are on your screen. This church is the community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm it and enable its participation in the larger world around us. The offering will now be generously given and gratefully received. I invite you now, wherever it is that you are, to join together in the spirit of prayer or meditation. Let's begin by breathing together. Try relaxing the muscles in your shoulders. Release the tension in your neck. Unclench your jaw. And just breathe in this moment, in this space, in this time. Let us be present. We begin in thanks. Thankful for the breath in our lungs, the beauty of our earth, and the strength of this, our beloved community. We hold in our hearts those who care for family in ill health, those who live with grief or chronic pain, those struggling with addiction or illness, seen and unseen. We are with you. For parents and teachers and all those whose primary spiritual practice is the care of children, we are with you. We pray for our neighbors in prison. For those who are struggling to stay afloat in the midst of poverty, we are with you. We pray for all those living in harm's way. We pray for our planet and commit to work that will lead us away from the harms of climate chaos. As war continues, we pray that wisdom, compassion, and empathy guide the leaders of our world. May they and we be instruments of a just and lasting peace. Our lives are truly blessed by those who knowingly, with curiosity and courage, face their final days. Into this, our shared silence across space, I invite you now to name anyone you wish to lift up into the loving support of our community. With our deepest compassion, let us hold in our hearts those named and unnamed, those remembered and those forgotten. Let it be so. Amen, and blessed be. During our ritual of lighting candles of joy, celebration, sorrows, and concerns, we want to continue to maintain our safety with one another. And so in the 2U sanctuary, you in just a moment will be invited to come forward, light a candle, and at the end of your time of contemplation and candle lighting, we invite you to use the hand sanitizer that's available. For those of us who are at the Admiral, I invite you to come forward and take a pebble from one bowl, hold it tightly in your hand, and
putting your energy into that stone, then knowing your joys and sorrows to be shared by this community, let it go lightly into the other bowl. And for those of us on Zoom, join us by sharing your joys and concerns in our chat window. I will light this flame representing all of those joys, celebrations, concerns, and sorrows of those of us on Zoom. You can come forward. We hold all of these, our shared joys, celebrations, concerns, and sorrows close to our hearts. Margot, would you share our first reading, please?
Our first reading this morning is an excerpt from Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail. It is likely familiar, and it is good to remind ourselves. I must make two honest confessions to you, my Christian and Jewish brothers. First, I must confess that over the last few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride toward freedom is not the white citizen's consular or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically feels that he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by the myth of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait until a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection.
Our second reading this morning is a poem by Palestinian-American poet Suhair Hamad. What I will. I will not dance to your war drum. I will not lend my soul nor my bones to your war drum. I will not dance to your beating. I know that beat. It is lifeless. I know intimately that skin you are hitting. It was alive once, hunted, stolen, stretched. I will not dance to your drummed up war. I will not pop, spin, break for you. I will not hate for you or even hate you. I will not kill for you, especially I will not die for you. I will not mourn the dead with murder nor suicide. I will not side with you nor dance to bombs because everyone else is dancing. Everyone can be wrong. Life is a right, not collateral or casual. I will not forget where I come from. I will craft my own drum. Gather my beloved near, and our chanting will be dancing. Our humming will be drumming. I will not be played. I will not lend my name nor my rhythm to your beat. I will dance and resist and dance and persist and dance. This heartbeat is louder than death. Your war drum ain't louder than this breath. Let's hear our anthem.
Our anthem this morning, of course, comes from the wonderful Unitarian musician Sarah Dan Jones. This is a song I think a lot of us are familiar with and frequently is sung as a hymn. This is Meditation on Breathing. If you would like to sing along, you're welcome to sing along. If you'd rather sit in silence and soak in the sound, you're welcome to do that as well.
identifier. Be not afraid. This is the message we heard from the angels speaking to shepherds during the Christmas season we just passed. It's a message that crosses traditions. We hear it from the ancient Hebrew prophet Isaiah, from the great prophet of Islam, Muhammad, from the 16th century humanist scholar Olympia Murata, and many, many others. Be not afraid. But we're given another message. Mark Twain tells us that courage is resistance to fear, mastery of fear, not absence of fear. The self-help writer Susan Jeffers has popularized the slogan, "Feel the fear and do it anyway." So regardless of which message one adheres to, there is a deep commonality. Fear is real. Fear is present. And in order to be successful in our life's work, it must be addressed whether by divine intervention or our own diligent attention. So as we honor Dr. King's legacy, we know that fearlessness was not his call, but rather a commitment to take action in the face of fear. There are certainly things that we as Unitarian Universalists are afraid of as a group. We're likely afraid of our own sustainability as a religion as we watch numbers across the country of progressive religion declining. We're afraid of what's happening to our planet, even as we remember the many examples of symbiosis we reflected together on last week. I imagine all of us can think of a thing or two that we as Unitarian Universalists are afraid of. Today, I want to reflect on our fear of talking about Palestine, Israel, and Zionism. I want to offer some thoughts on where that fear comes from, how that fear hurts both us as a faith tradition and hurts others outside of Unitarian Universalism, and then offer some steps we can take not only to alleviate our fear, but to take action in the name of justice. A great place to begin, usually, is why. Why are we afraid of this conversation? Why are we afraid to talk about a place so often called the Holy Land? I think one of the first answers is that we do not feel we know enough. What we do know is that Jewish people have been oppressed throughout a very long history, generation after generation. We know that the Holocaust was an unforgivable human act that went unhindered because of vehement anti-Semitism around the world, including right here in the US. We know that the Bible tells the story of a Jewish kingdom in Canaan, the land we understand to be where Palestine and Israel are today. We know the stories the media tells us of the terrorist Palestinians and the victims, Israelis. But beyond that, we as a collective have incredibly divergent information and understanding. Some of us read the electronic intifada on a day-to-day basis. Others of us read the Jerusalem Post. There are those of us whose knowledge of Israel, Palestine, and Zionism are only what we get in passing from mainstream media, coworkers, and family members or friends. When someone gets up in the pulpit to talk about Zionism, or when we hear about the ideology of Zionism in other places, many of us do not know the history or really have an understanding of what we are really talking about. Today's sermon, alas, is not an answer to this full lack of knowledge. Rather, I suggest that we as a faith tradition have an obligation to educate ourselves as a step towards alleviating our fears. When we have more information, we can more authentically engage, and to do so is a moral imperative. Our fear is not only a lack of knowledge. As Unitarian Universalists, we often choose social justice campaigns that will not make people within our congregations too uncomfortable. While same-sex marriage may have been a deeply controversial campaign on a larger scale, within our faith tradition, it was not something that really ruffled many feathers. The anti-racism work we've done, however, that has made many people uncomfortable, to the point that on a national level, resources were redirected out of programming and away from curriculum that was actively challenging our congregations to truly engage in anti-racist education and mobilization. Talking about and taking positions on what is happening in Palestine and Israel makes us deeply uncomfortable. I want to invite you to reflect on the differences between being uncomfortable at church and unsafe at church. I would suggest that being uncomfortable at church from time to time is an essential part of our growth as Unitarian Universalists. Being uncomfortable means we're getting pushed outside of our comfort zones. It means we're being challenged on assumptions that we've made. It means we may have to adjust our bodies, fidget even. It means our temperatures might rise and sweat might accumulate on our foreheads, though it does for me all the time anyway. It sometimes might mean that we cry or raise our voices. To be uncomfortable, it's okay. I wonder if you've noticed that as we have a conversation today that might make us a bit uncomfortable, we've had very comforting music to take care of us, to hold us in it. Being unsafe, though, that is something completely different. Our congregations need to be a place of sanctuary, homes for exploration in community. When we're unsafe, our inherent worth and dignity is threatened. When we are unsafe, our capacity to move, autonomy over our bodies, that is taken away from us. When we are unsafe, other people hold all of the power and control. Our congregations need to be places where we are safe, where boundaries and expectations are clear. The safer we are, the easier it is to practice being uncomfortable together. Mark Braverman, whose book Fatal Embrace will be referenced quite a bit today, recognizes that many non-Jews who challenge any aspect of the state of Israel have a great fear of being labeled anti-Semitic. I know this fear in a very real way. I've wrestled with such accusations in the past due to some of the solidarity work I've taken part in. And even as I believe it is not anti-Semitic to act in solidarity with Palestine and to critique the state of Israel, I also have the responsibility of interrogating the ways that I have been taught to internalize anti-Semitism. Just as I have internalized racist beliefs as a white person living in this world, I'm aware that I have internalized anti-Semitic beliefs as a non-Jew. Just as overcoming the multi-generational internalization around race is a lifelong journey, so too is the work to overcome internalized anti-Semitism. Unitarian Universalists as individuals and Unitarian Universalism as a faith movement have a responsibility to confront anti-Semitism on personal, interpersonal, institutional, and cultural levels. This commitment, though, need not keep us from paying attention to what is happening with the hundreds of billions of dollars that the US government gives in military aid to Israel, the largest recipient of military aid from the US in the world. I think this fear of being labeled anti-Semitic has some roots in a collective sense of guilt. When we learn about the atrocities of the Holocaust, it's difficult not to feel guilty that for many of us, our ancestors were either complicit in or actively involved in violence against Jewish people. We may feel guilty about living with the privileges that we have while others experience oppression. We may have feelings of guilt as Unitarian Universalists who were raised Jewish but left the faith and are struggling with the realities of identity transformation. However, we must move beyond guilt. Black lesbian feminist poet Audre Lorde reminds us that guilt is only another way of avoiding informed action, of buying time out of the pressing need to make clear choices out of the approaching storm that can feed the earth as well as bend the truth. We need to embody her words and work to move beyond this guilt, both as individuals and as a faith tradition. When we choose to be silent about Palestine, Israel, and Zionism, we are not only hurting others, we are hurting ourselves. Marilyn Buck, anti-racist organizer and former political prisoner, shows her understanding of the interconnectedness of her privileged humanity with the marginalized humanity of others when she writes, "If we stopped police brutality, if Black women and men were treated like equal human beings, that would make me feel really good because I would be less dehumanized as a white person in this society. I would not be objectified as the oppressor." The people of Palestine are under occupation and are suffering. I do not want to be part of being dehumanized by being complicit in oppression. I want to align with liberation. I can remember the first time that someone referred to Gaza as the world's largest open-air prison. As an abolitionist, that called me to learn more, to engage, and to speak up. Mark Braverman, writing as a Jewish theologian about Jewish people, claims, "We want to see ourselves," referring to Jews, "as universalist and humanitarian, in possession of a religious faith that is based on respect of human rights and seeing community as fundamental, defining commitment to universal justice." We also, however, persist in supporting the policies of the Israeli government, policies that violate the human rights of Palestinians, support the continued colonization and occupation in violation of international law. He continues by reminding us that American Jews have not created this situation by ourselves. We've been enabled by our Christian compatriots who, because of their sense of responsibility for historical anti-Semitism, feel they have no right to criticize any actions that Israel may take, even when these actions violate principles of human rights and justice. While we as Unitarian Universalists may not all be Christians, this message is for us as well. How can we claim to adhere to a religious tradition that values justice, equity, and compassion in human relations while we remain silent about the atrocities occurring under our noses? Whether you're a humanist, theist, agnostic, or celebrate the interconnectedness of life through our earth-based traditions, you can recognize that we suffer as a global community when oppression goes unchallenged. The late Howard Zinn, historian revered by many, constantly reminded us that we cannot be neutral on a moving train. We have a responsibility to make a conscious choice. Are we ready to talk about the realities of Israel's occupation of Palestine and its rooted ideology of Zionism, or are we going to choose to be complicit? Will we embody the practices of the white moderate that Dr. King wrote about in his letter from a Birmingham jail? Or will we embrace the risk of trying to speak out? In 1997, the General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association passed a resolution towards an anti-racist Unitarian Universalist Association. Within this resolution, we are called to recognize that the social, economic, and ecological health of our planet is imperiled by the deepening divisions in our world caused by inequitable and unjust distributions of power and resources. Beloveds, Unitarian Universalists have a responsibility to see what Israel is doing in Palestine as a manifestation of this global peril. It is clear that as a faith, we are living up to our call to social witness in many areas. It's been amazing to witness UUs rise up in solidarity with migrant communities, doing the work of defending democracy and protecting abortion access. However, anti-oppression work and witness is not something we just get to put a check mark next to. It's ongoing, multi-issue struggle that will likely never see an end in our lifetimes. If we are to do this work for the long haul, then we need to recognize and celebrate our accomplishments, and they are many, so celebrate them. And as we celebrate, we need to be reinvigorated to keep the work going, knowing that, to quote Audre Lorde again, we cannot have single-issue politics because we do not live single-issue lives. Before I take some time to talk about the important steps we can take as a people of faith and as a religion, I want to take a moment to say just a word about Zionism. If we are to have a conversation about what is happening in Palestine and Israel, we have to include an analysis of Zionism. Zionism is an ideology, a nationalist ideology that has been pushing for a Jewish state since the late 19th century, with Theodore Herzl as the founding thinker. Zionism functions with many different perspectives, from religious to labor, revisionist to green, and really many others. However, rooted in it all is the colonial claim to Palestine. In May of 1948, the plan to seize and gain control of Palestine happened, a day Palestinians call the Nakba, the catastrophe in Arabic. The displacement of millions of Palestinians, including what was the literal driving into the sea of some Palestinians in the West Bank. An ideology that is rooted in this kind of destruction can't go undiscussed. We must talk openly about it. Mark Braverman encourages his readers that indeed anti-Zionism does not equal anti-Semitism. Even while under attack by other people in his Jewish community, he writes, "Here is the crux of the matter. Jewish nationalism, as expressed in the state of Israel, is in conflict with our modern values of fairness, universalism, and commitment to human rights." He tells in his book, story upon story, of Palestinian homes demolished in the name of Jewish protection. He shares with readers about the suffering of Palestinian children who kiss their mothers goodbye and then do the best they can to get to school while navigating tanks and the occupation of Israeli soldiers. He shows the realities of what it means for Palestinians to wait at checkpoints and have their land invaded by a giant concrete wall. He reminds us that all of this has happened in the name of modern Zionism. So what must we do? As I mentioned earlier, first and foremost, we have got to educate ourselves. We must organize and mobilize our congregations to gain more information. We must sit with our own histories, the histories of the land, and the histories of resistance. We must learn about suffering and oppression. We must share openly and be gentle with each other. We must recognize that we're going to be uncomfortable sometimes. We need to train our ministers and our lay leaders how to be nurturing and loving while also challenging their congregations. We need to live in the practice of comforting the afflicted while afflicting the comfortable, even as we recognize that those are not static conditions. I will also say we need to make a choice. We are not choosing between loving our Jewish family or our Palestinian family. There is no question that we must love both. We do have a responsibility to choose between oppression and justice, however. This means making hard choices. If we wish to live true to our principles, we can't be neutral. Our Unitarian Universalism is shaped by our willingness to make choices. Our reverence of reason in relationship with mystery steers us towards moments of choice. challenging the realities of Zionism and the occupation of Palestine by Israel is our religious community's responsibility, not only for the liberation of Palestinians, but for the liberation of us all. When faced with these choices, I am hopeful and believe that we will continue to choose liberation, maybe not with fearlessness, but with courage and conviction. Let it be so, and amen.
Please rise in body and spirit and join us in singing our closing hymn, number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Oh, love will guide us. Peace has tried us. Hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. Love will guide us through the hard
I invite you to rest your hands upon your hearts or clasp hands with those you're sharing your life with in these pandemic times. Dr. King calls upon us to pursue